trenches in Picardy were naturally apprehensive. Although many were veterans by now, accustomed to the sounds and actions of battle and trained to advance confidently across no man's land into the enemy's trenches, an attack still meant danger, wounds, and death. They knew that many of them would not survive it, although by autumn 1918 many had become inured and fatalistic. If their time had come, they appreciated that their personal sacrifice would help to seal the fate of the German army, which was on its last legs after 4 years of sustained attrition. At the same time, among the troops, spirits were high, for this must be the final goodbye to trench warfare at last. As always, the coming attack would be a test of flesh and blood, but it would also be a vindication of fire and steel. In late September 1918, battle was raging along the whole length of the Western Front in France and Belgium. Allied Generalissimo Marshal Ferdinand Foch had just launched a carefully orchestrated offensive to break the German army once and for all, and British, French, American, Belgian, and Italian troops were striking at the German defences. An attack at first light on the 29th of September would be the culminating blow against the centre of the Hindenburg Line that the German army had constructed over the winter of 1916 as a final line of defence. This was a formidable defensive system, comprising 3 successive defensive positions up to 9 kilometres deep. Its trenches were sited so as to be hard to target with artillery fire, and were heavily wired and reinforced with concrete strongpoints and anti-tank ditches. Such defences are valid against primitive opponents, but against the full mechanical resources of a well-equipped army seem to be, in the end, futile, Artillery Officer Lieutenant Richard Dixon believed. And Germany was now up against a mighty concentration of power, built up over 4 years by Britain and her dominions. Masses of artillery and tanks were ready to go into action to smash through the famous Hindenburg Line, and we in the 53rd Brigade were a small part of that huge and, as it proved, irresistible concentration. After 4 years of combat, the Allied armies now had the means and skill to assault it, while the German army no longer possessed the manpower and resolve needed to hold it. Within the last 4 weeks, we had captured 77,000 prisoners and nearly 800 guns, Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig noted proudly. There has never been such a victory in the annals of Britain. The discipline of the German army is quickly going, and the German officer is no longer what he was. The enemy's troops will not await our attacks, even on the strongest positions. Between 1914 and 1918, warfare had changed its nature. Attrition, the cumulative exhaustion of the enemy's fighting capacity, had done its work. When the attacking companies left their trenches, they followed a raging wall of artillery fire across no man's land that protected them until they were within the enemy's defences. The enemy soldiers they encountered there were still brave, but outnumbered and exhausted. The raw American troops attacking on the northern end of British Fourth Army's front, across the Bellecourt tunnel that bridged the Saint-Quentin Canal at this point, were engaged by machine gun and artillery fire, and the Australian battalions coming up in support found themselves sucked into the fight. There the attack seemed to be checked, but to the south, British troops of the 46th Division, supported by probably the heaviest weight of artillery fire ever to accompany the attack of a single British division, had crossed the Saint-Quentin Canal under the cover of early morning fog and pushed on into the centre of the German defences. Many dazed German soldiers were caught in their underground shelters by this dynamic attack and faced the choice of surrender or death in their holes. Those gaunt prisoners that emerged into the daylight were dressed in faded and patched uniforms. Over 4 years, the Allied blockade had deprived Germany and her allies of food, industrial raw materials, and manufactured goods, and the sorry state of her army was a reflection of the parlous living standards which now afflicted Germany's home front. French troops attacking on either side of Saint-Quentin extended the penetration further south, but their progress was slow as the enemy put up fierce resistance. German counterattacks were desperate but generally doomed to failure. With German divisions seriously undermanned and fresh reserves unobtainable,